Chapter 147 to 149. Rei caressed Ringo's hair as she dozed off in his lap after she carefully threw Samahata at Yujito with words. I think this one will fit you well considering you are Jinchuriki. It was funny how no matter Yujito protested that greatsword and nimble cat-like fighting style didn't go together. Ringo just shrugged her off and said she believed Yujito would find a way before promptly monopolizing Rei's lap for herself with a smug, self-satisfied expression. She must be really exhausted, Mei commented, half glaring at Ringo clad only in a skimpy yukata after taking a long bath to scrub off all the dust from her fight. How could it be so? Mei started carefully poking Ringo's butt, making her whimper. Bouncy, she muttered to herself while her free hand was comparing her own. Rei just chuckled and let the girl to her own fantasies, while he read his notebook, where all his rough ideas on his bijou project were written. It was a very slow-going and tiring process. His days were filled with research, sex, and more research. But he was sure it would be worth it in the future. Strong or not, neither of his group was at the level of the endgame Naruto or Sasuke, much less Kagaya. The anime made it seem so easy. In under 4 years, a total orange-loving Hokage screaming loser became a deity-level powerhouse. In under 4 years, an edgy duck-butt-haired language-impaired HN, Avenger wannabe became a deity-level powerhouse. All because of some nonsense about being the reincarnations of Indra and Azura, some magical eye power, and beast sealed in the stomach. When one really looks into how exactly Naruto and Sasuke got so strong, it is really sad because they are nothing but predetermined to be such. What hard work. I bet at least half of the Jonin put more hard work into being a ninja than Naruto's bird brain could ever comprehend or Sasuke's avenging tunnel vision could discover. Rei sighed. I am so pissed. Becoming Jonin was not really all that easy. The amount of seemingly useless skills one had to perfect was mind-boggling. It was not all just about firepower and killing things. Not entirely. Rei was putting in the hard work. Training, studying, researching, earning money, playing politics through the Bairi company, and much more. He was progressively getting stronger too. He was also making his girls stronger, and was delighted when they put in the needed effort to become incredibly strong without him even having to ask them for it. But the main characters, what the fuck was with some old deity-class world-peaking geezer touching the two boys, and them suddenly gaining the necessary additional power to face against Kagaya. Maybe I should have chosen some plot armor bullcrap during my reincarnation? Rei hummed jokingly, getting back to his bijou creation research, as he enjoyed Ringo's silky hair in between his fingers and her soft cheek pressed into his thighs. In the end, as long as he had his girls and all people he cared about were happy, was there even a reason to complain? Rei sat on his couch with Konan sitting on his right side with her back straightened and with a pondering expression on her face, while Tsunade was sitting on his left side, leaning on his arm, totally uncaring about the meeting. Only these two knew what Rei wanted to say, and while Konan was racking her brain to think about how to improve or make Rei reach his goal easier, Tsunade didn't care. If Rei told her to do something, she would do it, but leaning on Rei was more enjoyable than thinking about the current topic. Opposite them, Mei sat in Ringo's lap. Since they found a common interest in weapon forging, Ringo and Mei became almost inseparable, and together, more often than not, even flammable. Rei might have repaired 5 houses per day thanks to his clones, but Mei and Ringo destroyed at least 12 per week in their sisterly arguments that left craters all over Yuzushio. Both were a bit curious about what Rei wanted to talk about since he grouped them all together, but while Mei's eyes were gleaming in interest, Ringo had a bored expression. There was no way Rei would call all of them together for a fight at this stage, so, meh? I called this meeting because the rebuilding of Yuzushio is mostly finished. We have a village. Now we need villagers. Rei said, taking a teacup from the table. Mei and Ringo instantly snapped at attention. We are finally going to make a ninja village? Ringo's eyes gleamed. Since she got to know Rei will eventually make his own village, she wanted to create a group similar to the 7 swordsmen. Alas, she was currently the only swordsman, and with Mei, they were in the stage of finding out how to create swords on par with Kiba at the very least. That was partially the reason why she took Samahata, the most incredible of the 7 swords. She needed an example to study. No. Rei shook his head, causing Ringo to deflate. We are making a civilian town with the goal of making it into a very important trading hub in the future. He continued, and enjoyed Ringo frowning for a bit before he added, officially at least. Ringo and Mei looked at each other, tilting their heads in confusion. What do you think the hidden in Hidden Village stands for? Konan added, a bit annoyed at their dull expressions. Modern ninjas, really. She scoffed, making both Ringo and Mei blush a bit from shame. I didn't think of that. Mei admitted with a high dose of sarcasm in her tone, before her tone turned to seriousness as she looked at Rei. So you want the ninja village to be hidden behind the appearance of a civilian town? You know that won't work for more than a few years, right? Konoha already tried that. Of course not. The actual ninja village will be in a different location, and we will use seals to thoroughly hide its existence. But that's not important for now. First, we need to build Uzushio into an important trading town, and for that, we need people. Why not use the merchants and employees of the Bairi company? Ringo asked, but Tsunade gave her a deadpan look, causing her to sheepishly smile in confusion, which made Konan giggle and Tsunade groan. In the past months, Tsunade took over Konan, or Na-Kona as was her alias, and became Nadetsu Juzun, the new director of the Bairi company, with her wood clones that could literally be molded to a different image. Nadetsu Juzun was a tall tan lady with an average chest, blue eyes, and blonde hair of a darker shade. There was no way to relate her to the real Tsunade in any way. Plus the wordplay with her name was so lame, childish, and elementary no self-respecting ninja would actually believe it to be more than a dumb coincidence. Obviously, it's to avoid exposing that Uzushio and the Bairi have ties. The entire success of the Bairi company is built on the fact that we have no affiliation with any village or nation and provide equal services to everyone at the same price. Tsunade explained with a patient tone before gesturing to Konan. It took Konan and Karubo years, and the entire Third War had to happen to firmly establish this fact in the minds of our clientele, who believed us to still be biased towards Kirigakure, since we originated in the Land of Water. Make no mistake, the Mizukage and the Water Daimyo were pissed at us for not showing any favoritism towards them during the war. Showing a favorable relationship is fine, but outright putting our people to Uzushio is a blatant show of favoritism and bad for the business. And I am not even talking about the message such an action would send. Despite her tendencies, Tsunade was groomed to be very skilled in politics and economy from an early age. It was just that most of the time, she disregarded everything in favor of resolving her problems with a straight punch to the noggin. Alas, the second Konan discovered there was a bit more to Tsunade's mind than rampaging around like a drunk half-mad badger and healing. She started grooming her, Nadetsu Juzun, to be her successor as she started showing that she, Na-Kona, was ill and would eventually step down. In Rei's opinion, it was a good move since Tsunade was indeed more able in these matters compared to Konan. Naturally, that particular agreement took a lot of intimacy, a promise of more time spent together, which Rei planned to do anyway since he missed her when she was in Konoha. Not that she had to know that, and Konan had to donate 20 of her paper clones to do the paperwork for Tsunade. After all, paper jutsus were a huge advantage there. All in all, Tsunade only dealt with the direction of the company and the most important stuff. So, you will probably want highly loyal people acting as merchants for Uzushio and the first inhabitants, so I guess the strategy will be the same as what you told Karubo to do to get employees for the Bairi. We are going to save some poor bastards and offer them a safe haven, food, and comfortable life, and slowly build their feeling of belonging. Some basic manipulations, maybe? Tsunade bit the tip of her finger and Rei smiled, patting her head. I, Konan, and Tsunade are going to the land of grass. Ringo and Mei can focus on their forging or training Yujito in Mei's case. He gave the pouting girl a knowing look before his expression shifted to seriousness itself. But please stop fighting in the open. If you feel the itch to destroy a big plot of land, go to the dimension, he strictly said, narrowing his eyes at the two women who gulped and started frantically nodding. Rei smiled. That is all I wanted to say to you. 3 figures were walking on the muddy road in the countryside of the grass country, clad in black cloaks. These cloaks were the same and yet different from the ones Yozora members wore. Thanks to a special illusionary seal, they were tattered and seemed to portray a guise of poverty, while still being fully capable of covering the wearer's identity. Rei never really understood why Akatsuki members always wore their cloaks, or how the heck did they manage to infiltrate a hidden village while wearing it, for that matter. He was a ninja, and the first thing ninjas did not do was scream, "I am here," with his clothing. That was also the reason why neither he nor his girls wore their ninja forehead protectors anymore. Finally, Rei and his party arrived at the entrance to Harima village. Despite this village being quite far away from the war frontier, many of its inhabitants attempted to flee only to be returned by Kusa ninjas, who needed them in the village to grow a special kind of poisonous plant for them. Needless to say, the average lifespan of Harima village inhabitants working with these plants was around 35. The village was dependent on the Kusagakure for everything from food to even things like shovels. It was already a miracle they had their own well. Kusagakure would never let them be independent, since a lot of their income came from what the villagers grew there. Are you sure we are at the right place? Tsunade questioned, frowning at the small wooden huts, more often than not having many cracks, being completely in disrepair, or showing previously destroyed parts unevenly patched with planks of wood. Tsunade turned towards Konan with a pissed-off look. You said an Uzumaki family is living here? Rei only nodded in agreement. Long ago, he distributed bloodline-identifying seals of his own creation to the peddlers and merchants working for the Bairi company. He had quite a lot of places where Uzumaki clan members lived in relative peace, but he nor the Bairi company could not do anything during the war in most cases. Frankly, so far the Bairi company found means to take in only 20 Uzumaki from the 212 discovered cases of people with bloodline ties to the Uzumaki clan. Most of these didn't even know they were Uzumaki clan members, and more often than not they were affiliated with some ninja village. At this point, they have so scattered the revival of the Uzumaki clan, without any major help would be just a pipe dream. Just remember that Uzumaki are not our primary objective. Rei lightly said and started walking towards the village. Kazuto Kariki looked at the villagers gathered in the square, all underfed and wearing shabby clothes with many tears. His cold brown eyes scanned every single one of them until they stopped at one pale-skinned young girl with red hair, amethyst eyes, sunken cheeks, and a slightly bulging stomach. Kazuto could only click his tongue at that. He knew the brat she was expecting as his. He made sure none of the male villagers dared to approach her, and his men knew well she served him exclusively. The position of overseer of Harima village was a poor one without any way to get rich, since the villagers didn't have much, but nobody could say it didn't have at least some advantages. But who would have thought she would get pregnant? Kazuto glared at the woman who was kneeling a bit away from him, causing her to flinch. Should I just kill her? But she has that bite-heal ability. If it came out I killed her when she could become such a valuable asset for the village. Kazuto was not really exceptionally strong. During the entire war, he survived on his smarts rather than bronze, and even his high position was thanks to his skills in flattery. This situation was not really different. He kept her ability in secret for the entire duration of the war for his own benefit. Whether it was satisfying his lust with what was in his opinion the prettiest girl in the village, or having an easy-to-use healing tool. Meh. I will just take her to the village, and when the higher-ups get to know of her ability, they will take care of the matter for me. As long as I play my cards right, a bit of threatening her with her parents will be enough to ensure her mouth is shut after I take her to Kusagakure. Nobody has to know I knew about her ability for years. Kazuto's eyes then landed on the two people in their late 30s kneeling next to the girl. Alas, they would have to die the second the girl left the Harima village to tie loose ends. He could only sigh in sadness at that. His poor subordinates will be saddened. The girl's mother was the second prettiest woman in the village, despite her advanced age. Honestly, Kazuto didn't like it when he took over the post. He outright hated how the villagers were treated, but the position of overseer of the Harima village was the only thing that prevented him from being sent to the front lines. At first, he only took the red-headed girl as his servant only from pity, because he knew the ninjas appointed as his subordinates were always those nasty, vicious, and bitter forever genins who just loved to make other people, those weaker than them, suffer to alleviate the feeling of their own incompetence and stress from living on the edge. But as years went by, he got used to it. He only did what was necessary for the Kusagakure to thrive. At least, that was what he told himself every time he saw his servant girl cry in the corner. The stupid cow doesn't even know how good she has it. Other girls would jump to be in her place. Kazuto mentally scoffed when he saw the girl clutch the hem of her tattered clothes with her hands. Kaya Uzumaki, you will accompany me to the Kusagakure. It is time to start being useful to the village that is feeding you, Kazuto bluntly exclaimed, making the girl and her parents' heads snap in his direction with scared expressions. He smirked, walking closer to her before grabbing her hair and yanking it back to make her look at him. Don't worry, you will still be considered my slave. What? Do you have a problem with my decision? They could only lower their heads in acceptance. Neither Kaya nor her parents wanted her to go alone to an unknown village, much less a militaristic one like the Kusagakure when she was pregnant. Life in the Harima village was not comfortable, and most of the time, it could be called downright cruel because of the ninjas who were stationed there for the village's protection. But at the very least, they knew what to expect from such a life and were already used to it. Work diligently in the fields, bear with some bullying from the ninjas, not like they could overdo it too much, and spend as much time in the comforting presence of the family in order not to mentally break. Going to the Kusagakure was a big unknown, and it scared Kaya to think how she would be treated there. If the way her family was treated here was any indication, going to Kusagakure frightened her to no end, especially since she would not have her family to encourage her. I sure as hell do have a problem with your decision, twat. A low gruff growl of a very pissed woman resounded through the surroundings as a monstrous killing intent and chakra pressure flooded the square. Tsunade, wearing a blank white mask, suddenly appeared behind Kazuto, who suddenly found something grabbing his shoulder and pressing him down with massive force, causing him to fall on his knees. With an abrupt twist of her fingers, Tsunade snapped his collarbone, making him scream and attempt to trash, but her grip was too strong for Kazuto to break free. She saw the silent and verbal interaction between him and the barely 15-year-old frightened and underfed Uzumaki girl, and she didn't like the conclusion of her findings at all. Tsunade expected the Uzumaki family not to have a very easy or nice life, since Rei chose the village for recruitment, which meant the living conditions must be frankly a wholesale shit, but to think the entire village would be abused by ninjas of their own country, that was unthinkable. Not even one of the big five would dare to do a stunt like this openly. Sure, they do a lot of nasty business, Sometimes even massacre is involved, but ongoing abuse against civilians is something that would make their clientele drop faster than a meteorite if it was known. Poverty was widespread, but bullying of the populace was something only bandits did. Not to mention the shitstorm the daimyo would cause if it reached his ears. There would simply be a hell to pay. Treating an Uzumaki like shit in front of me. You must have balls of steel, Tsunade quietly said in a dark tone, causing the people around to get chills. Let's put them to a test, then. Kazuto suddenly found his field of vision, shifting into the blue sky as he was flipped back. Brief pain impacted his senses when his back roughly met the ground, before he was even capable to register what was happening. And then, white searing hot pain overwhelmed him, causing his vision to go blur. He wanted to scream, thrash around, curse, but his mind was completely numb from pain, unable to think about anything else, and his body was paralyzed. Tsunade gritted her teeth as she noticed Kazuto fainting and lifted her foot from the bloody fleshy bony mush that was previously Kazuto's crotch. Looks like your balls were not made of steel after all. She derisively snorted, and every man in the vicinity, even Rei, suddenly had an overwhelming urge to ascertain their important bits are all right and as far away from Tsunade as possible. You know, not even steel could withstand your stomp. Conan's voice snapped many Kusa ninjas out of their reverie, but it was too late. Every single one of them who were close to the kneeling villagers found their heads took a short trip towards the ground as Conan's razor-sharp spinning paper discs cleaved through their necks so fast. They didn't even notice when they died. Tsunade just rolled her eyes and turned towards the ninjas further away from the villagers, but Rei had it already solved. He didn't use anything extraordinary, just hundreds of 10-centimeter-long water needles, skewing the 20 or so remaining Kusa ninjas, and the job was done. In the end, the ninjas stationed in the Harima village were at best high genins ability-wise. The so-called failures who were unfit to do anything else due to their bad personality and low talent. It would be an embarrassment if Rei, Conan, and Tsunade couldn't finish them in under 5 seconds. Rei steadily walked towards the crowd of kneeling, and now scared villagers, stopping only when he was 5 meters away from them. Every single pair of eyes were on him, showing fear and anxiety. After all, they did just see him and his companions slaughter their protectors. Fear? That's fine. Anxiety? Also understandable. But it is that small hope in their gazes that makes me assured we won't have to do much work to persuade them. Rei thought as a satisfied smirk appeared on his face. Hello everyone. We came with an offer you just can't turn down. The talks were finally finished. The villagers jumped at the offer of relocation and a chance at a new and better life almost instantly. Only a few older ones had a few questions that Rei readily answered to ease their worries. Needless to say, he also explained what exactly he wanted in return, and that was for them to learn and improve before entering his service. After all, this was a business deal, not a charity, and he made sure they understood that part. Rei was willing to provide better life and education, but the villagers would be expected to join Uzushio Trading Company, UTC in short, and strive to make the company and the Uzushio better. Well then, time to go. Rei clapped his hands and activated a seal he left on the edge of the square. Instantly, an oval-like portal appeared in the air a bit above the seals. This is a portal that will get you to Uzushio and apply the secrecy seal we talked about before. Rei gestured towards it. The secrecy seal was what Rei decided to use as a security measure. It was placed via chakra on the heart of the recipient, meaning removing it with any currently available means would be impossible to survive. The seal basically prevented the recipient from disclosing vital information about Uzushio, and not to be so totally totalitarian. Rei even added a function that would improve physical health, fitness, and even brain a bit through circulating their latent chakra. With that, no common bandit would be able to pose a threat to his new workforce after their bodies get a bit of time to adjust and they pass some rudimentary training. The villagers started going through the portal under Conan's supervision, and Rei walked towards the corner of the square where Tsunade was talking with the Uzumaki family. How is the family meeting going? Rei asked jovially, causing all 4 of them to turn towards him. Fine, Tsunade smiled, no longer wearing her mask. Uzushigakure apparently started evacuating civilians the second they heard about the invasion. Kara and Kentaro were members of one of the groups that succeeded to run away. She offhandedly pointed towards the 2 older people. Hello, Kentaro sheepishly smiled, not knowing how to act towards Rei, who nodded at him. I gather you heard my offer, Rei stated, crossing his arms under his chest. Yes, we would like to join. Kara started after pinching her husband silent. The poor man looked like a kicked puppy. I must admit, we ended up here because we were afraid of being discovered. When we came, this was just a quiet rural village far away in the countryside, and it was only 10 years ago it all changed and nobody was allowed to leave anymore. She sighed, but her eyes were warily looking at Rei. You will be allowed to leave from Uzushio, but the seal will prevent you from talking about it. After all, I plan to make it a merchant town, so being isolated is a big no-no. Rei explained with a smile. Fine. It will be better for our daughter and grandchild anyway, Kara sullenly relented. She knew their chances to survive would be nil if she refused. Not like we could get an education and a good earning job offer for us anywhere else. Rei could see both Kara and Kentaro were hanging on the last thread of hope. If the new Yuzushio treated them badly, it would probably crush their spirit. He chose to give them one last reassurance. Don't worry. Tsunade is somewhat of a family with you, and she would beat me up if I didn't treat you well. Rei laughed, gesturing to the woman who was chattering the time away with Kaya a bit away from them, while also giving the young pregnant girl a quick medical checkup. It didn't take long for the Uzumaki family, alongside the other villagers, to leave through the portal, and Tsunade rejoined Konan and Rei. So, portal, that's the first time I am seeing it. She hummed. Well, dear. Rei snaked his hand around her waist and pulled her closer. You are not the only one who improved. My clones are nonstop researching new seals. This one will be a good way for our future most trusted merchants and ninjas to go around the elemental nations without anyone being able to intercept them. The problem is only the means to keep it all secret for a long period of time. Hence, the secrecy seal. Konan added. Hence, the secrecy seal. Rei nodded, his cocky smile getting wider and wider. Don't worry. For our future ninjas, I have a better version in the process of making. No matter what, I will make the first really hidden village in the elemental nations. So, what about him? Konan pointed at the only alive resident of the village except for them. Tsunade turned her head towards the fainted form of Kazuto, her lips twisting into a scowl. Just leave him there. If he survives, living with such an injury will be hell, and if he dies, it would take a few days of hell anyway. Both Rei and Konan nodded, turning back towards the portal and walking through it. The second the portal closed, the fields of poisonous plants suddenly flared up in fire. There was no need for Rei to leave the last batch of them available for Kusagakure now, was there?